President of the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, New England chapter, AFA New England. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time tonight, AFA New England is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to improve the quality of life for all of us living with asthma, allergies, including food allergies and related diseases. And we serve all 6 New England states, and we've been doing this since 1979. And we fulfill our mission through a wide range of activities, including educational programming, such as our speaker series program tonight, through our support services, through our advocacy initiatives, and through our support for research, including our $10,000 medical research grant program, which we launched this year, and very excited about it. We continue to raise awareness about inequities in access to healthcare and ways in which to affect positive change. And we do that through our speaker series programming, through our feature articles in our asthma and allergy bulletins that we publish 3 times annually, through our legislative advocacy and free resources, some of which we provide in both Spanish and English. And tonight, AFA New England would like to thank our corporate partner, MSIC, for their support of our webinar tonight. And we appreciate their support of our work for our community all throughout this year. Tonight's webinar will be recorded by AFA New England and will be available for future viewing on our website. And our website's a long one. If you don't know it, it is www.asthmaandallergies.org, all one word there. We ask that all program attendees remain on mute for the duration of the program so that everyone will have the best possible audio experience. We're also going to reserve questions to the end of the program so that each speaker may get through their presentation. But if you have a question, you can type it at any point in time in the chat box, and we will get to them at the end of the program. And I promise we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can within this hour time frame. And before we begin, I'd like to say that any mention or reference of a company or an organization or institution or its available products or services should not be construed as an endorsement or recommendation by AFA New England. Information presented in this program should not be used as a substitute for professional medical care to diagnose or treat symptoms or illnesses, and AFA New England won't be responsible for any actions that are taken by attendees or viewers as a result of this program. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce to you our distinguished, very distinguished speakers for tonight's webinar. Dr. Lisa Bartnikas is an allergist, immunologist at Boston Children's Hospital and assistant professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. She's a clinician and also conducts clinical research on pediatric food allergies. Dr. Bartnikas has over 40 peer-reviewed publications in the areas of IgE-mediated food allergies, FPIEs, psychosocial impact of food allergy, and primary immune deficiency. And her research interests include the management of food allergies in schools and the psychosocial impact of food allergies. Together with Dr. Teresa Benjamin, she created and co-chairs the Psychosocial Impact of Food Allergies work group within the Adverse Reactions to Foods Committee of the Quad AI. Dr. Bartnikas is the past president of the New England Society of Allergy, and she is also a member of AFA New England's Medical Advisory Committee. So we thank Dr. Bartnikas for tonight and say welcome. Our second speaker, Dr. Jennifer Lebovich, is an attending psychologist in the Division of Immunology at Boston Children's Hospital and assistant professor in psychology at Harvard Medical School. She provides psychosocial consultation for children and families related to coping with food allergies and other allergic conditions. And her research interests focus on enhancing patient and family coping and self-management of food allergies. And she has publications in all of these areas and including topics related to atopic dermatitis. Dr. Lebovich is a member of AFA New England's Medical Advisory Committee as well. And so we thank you to Dr. Lebovich and say welcome for tonight's program. And Dr. Teresa Benjamin is Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Medicine in the divisions of Allergy, Immunology, and Rheumatology and Pediatric Allergy and Immunology at the University of Rochester. She is the Program Director for its Allergy and Immunology Fellowship Program. Dr. Benjamin serves on the editorial boards of the Annals of Allergy and Immunology and Peds in Review as the Allergy and Immunology Editor. And she serves also on the boards of directors of the American Board of Allergy and Immunology and ACGME Review Committee for Allergy and Immunology. and her research focuses on IgE and non-IgE mediated food allergy, physician well-being, and anaphylaxis. She has publications in these and other areas, and we say thank you to Dr. Benjamin and welcome. I think you will agree that we have an incredibly distinguished panel, and we're very fortunate to have them with us here tonight. Understanding how to manage food allergies when our children are first diagnosed with a food allergy, and then as they grow and become more mature and independent, can at times be challenging. And so this evening, information, recommendations, strategies, and tips will be shared based on each expert panelist's recommendations and professional work. Newly available resources, which we're very excited about, will also be shared, including how they may be accessed. And so now I am very pleased to turn this speaker series program over to Dr. Lebovich. Dr. Lebovich.
Thank you so much for those introductions, Jan, and the opportunity to be with everyone today. So tonight we will be speaking on tips for managing food allergies at each developmental stage. And we have no relevant disclosures for tonight's presentation. So our learning objectives for today's webinar will be to discuss developmental aspects of managing and coping with food allergy, to provide strategies for gradually involving children in food allergy self-management over time, and to utilize the food allergy stages educational handouts, which were created by the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Adverse Reactions to Food Committee to efficiently and effectively provide age-appropriate food allergy guidance to patients and families. So we'll start with the question, why a developmental approach to coping with food allergy? And I like to think of this as the intersection of food allergy management and child development. So we know that there are pillars of food allergy management that are always important for people with food allergies: careful avoidance of allergens and preparedness to recognize and treat allergic reactions. But there are also changes in food allergy management concerns as children mature, based on unique safety concerns and new social, emotional issues at each stage, as well as changes in food allergy management, as well as changes in children's understanding of what food allergies are and their increasing ability to play a greater role in food allergy management over time. So if we're thinking about allergen avoidance, for example, a parent of an active toddler might wonder, how am I going to navigate our upcoming family reunion when my child's allergens are present and everyone is eating and kids are running all over the place? Will my child have a meltdown when they can't eat what their cousins are eating? While the parent of a school-age child might be thinking, I want my child to be safe in school and minimize risks for accidental ingestion of allergens, like in the cafeteria or the classroom, but I don't want them to be socially isolated or to feel anxious about their allergens being present. And the parent of an adolescent may be thinking, will my child feel comfortable speaking up about their allergies and asking questions about ingredients when they're out at a restaurant with their friends? I want them to take on more responsibility for food allergy management, but are they ready, or am I ready for that? So all important considerations that look different at each developmental stage. So it's important to acknowledge that some increased anxiety with these developmental transitions is common and normal, particularly anytime that families are moving towards greater dependence on other caregivers like daycare or schools, or the child themselves to manage food allergies. So a key element of this developmental approach to food allergy management is really the importance of a gradual, team-based approach to building children's knowledge and skills over time. So this means teaching them about their food allergies and why we do what we do to manage them in a way that's consistent with their developmental capabilities, and then gradually increasing children's involvement in their own management over time with continued support of their parents and healthcare providers and other caregivers. So we'll dive into specific ways to do this later in the webinar. And the goal really is that by the time kids are doing things like going off to school or managing food allergies without an adult present, both the child and the parent will feel more confident. And we think that this gradual approach increases safety, decreases anxiety, and then increases confidence and improves quality of life for the child and the caregiver. So I also wanted to speak briefly about the inspiration for our food allergy stages educational handouts that we'll be discussing with you today. So as many good projects are, this project was directly inspired by a conversation with a parent. So I was speaking with the mother of a 3-year-old who was looking for some guidance on how she could help her daughter understand her food allergies before she went off to preschool, but she wasn't really sure what her daughter would understand, and she certainly didn't want to make her fearful. So at the end of our session together, this mother also shared that she and her child were part of a play group for families of young children with food allergy. And she wondered, was there a resource somewhere online that I could point her towards, specifically tailored to the issues of preschool-aged children with food allergy that she could easily share with the other parents as well, because many of them had similar concerns. And there are a lot of wonderful educational resources out there about food allergy management, and research demonstrates that these resources really can improve family quality of life. But I drew a blank when I was thinking about an easily accessible resource specifically tailored to this age group, or where I would send families if they asked about a specific resource for parents of infants or school-age children or teens, for example. And so I reached out to my colleague, Dr. Bartnikas at Boston Children's, who was one of the chairs of the psychosocial impact of food allergy work group through the Quad AI. And I threw out the idea that, maybe there's a need for something like this, roadmaps for families of children with food allergy at different developmental stages. And she quickly agreed and emailed her co-chair, Dr. Bingaman. And before we knew it, we were submitting a proposal to the Quad AI to see, could we make this happen? So further information about the development of the food allergy stages handouts can be found in our recent work group report in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology in Practice. But for now, I just want to really quickly highlight some of our underlying aims for the project. So first of all, we wanted to create a resource that was reliable and evidence-based. So we know families commonly look to the internet to find food allergy related information, but it can be tricky determining which sources are reliable, which can actually inadvertently increase stress and potentially compromise safety and quality of life. We wanted to keep an underlying focus on balanced coping with food allergies. So parents will often express that they want their child to take food allergies seriously, but they don't want them to feel frightened or anxious. They want them to be safe, and they also want to make sure they're socially included. So to balance these concerns. So our goal really was to give families information and tools to help them effectively and really confidently manage food allergy, and to directly address common psychosocial challenges around food allergy management at each developmental stage. And we really wanted to include practical strategies and tips that families could use in everyday life, and provide roadmaps for educating children and teens over time. So we tried to include specific examples and language families could use that would be understandable to children at each stage of development. And finally, it was really important to us this resource would be easily accessible online, free to families, healthcare providers, and the public, and would meet varied health literacy needs. So our project team included a group of allergists and psychologists through the Quad AI. And in line with our focus on an evidence-based approach, content was based on professional practice parameters and clinical guidelines for management of food allergy, published research on psychosocial and developmental aspects of managing food allergy, and the clinical experience of our project team. And we had a lot of discussion about the best way to structure these handouts. So ultimately, we created one handout called Food Allergy Basics for All Ages, with information we thought would be useful to all families of children or teens or young adults with food allergy, and then separate handouts for each developmental stage. So you can see the stages listed on the right-hand side of your screen. And we kept the topic headings, which you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, consistent across each of the age-specific handouts, with a few exceptions for some specific topics for young adults. And the idea really, again, was that certain issues are going to be important for food allergy management across ages, but the specific safety and psychosocial issues to consider and practical tips and ways to involve children would vary by stage. And these handouts are all caregiver facing or aimed at the parent or caregiver as the reader, with the exception of the young adult handout, which was written directly for the young adult patient. And so we thought it was really important to collect caregiver feedback on the handouts before finalizing them. So very briefly, we had 57 caregivers of patients ages 0 to 21 years with food allergy, and 2 young adults review the handouts and provide feedback. And the majority of participants were satisfied with the length of the handouts, so they would be either somewhat or very likely to use them. And almost all participants agreed that the handouts used elements of plain language writing, so everyday language, defining medical terms, and giving families specific actions they can take. And finally, we used open-ended questions about the handouts to gather more feedback from participants. And they did find that they particularly valued that developmental focus in information about emotional aspects of coping with food allergy, which might not have been as available in existing resources. And we also got feedback that we needed to make the handouts less text heavy. And luckily, we had wonderful graphic design support from the Quad AI. And so we incorporated all this feedback into our final draft of the handouts. And so with this introduction to the food allergy stages handouts, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bartnikas to talk more specifically now about how we applied this developmental approach and developed the handouts for our young children and school-age children with food allergy.
Great, thank you. This is a screenshot that you'll see when you go to access the handouts on the Quad AI website, and you'll see the links below, and we're going to share the links to access these handouts several times during the webinar, so you'll hopefully be able to bookmark them or quickly access them yourself. So this is a screenshot you'll see when you go look at the food allergy stages handouts, and as Dr. Lebovich mentioned, the idea behind this is that different skills are needed for managing and coping with food allergies in daily life at different ages. So these handouts were designed specifically to help families manage food allergies and teach children about food allergies at different developmental stages. On the right-hand side, you'll see links to each of the different handouts, the food allergy basics for all ages that we mentioned, as well as food allergy stages handouts for different age groups ranging from baby, age 0 to 12 months, all the way up to young adults, ages 18 to 21 years. One thing I wanted to emphasize is that although we have these as age-based, they're really developmental stage-based as well. So for children with developmental delays, learning disabilities, autism, you can look more at the developmental stage rather than sticking with this strict age group to find the fit that works best for working with your child and their food allergies. And we were lucky enough that the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology was able to translate these resources into Spanish as well. So the Spanish link is available directly on the website, and then the link is included below as well. So just to review the topics covered in the handout, so teaching children about food allergy, allergen exposure, label reading, recognizing and treating an allergic reaction, managing food allergies at home, eating out at restaurants, educating other caregivers, managing food allergies in educational settings such as childcare, school, or college, navigating social activities, supporting children's self-esteem, managing anxiety and feeling confident, and preparing children for medical visits. So I'm going to start off talking about the earlier age groups, the babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. And the theme of this age group is supporting parents of the active and curious. And I'm going to be combining 3 of the developmental stages here: the babies ages 0 to 12 months, the toddlers 1 to 3 years, and then the preschoolers ages 3 to 5 years. So I wanted to walk through some of the important concepts in these younger age groups. So as many of you know, recalling, or if you still are parents of young children, children are active, curious, and need very careful monitoring at this age. Children pay really close attention to what adults do and what adults say and learn by imitation and play. Parents and caregivers are role models at this age, and your child is watching and listening and taking cues from how you react to situations, what you do, and what you say. Establishing daily routines gives children a sense of security. They know what's coming next, they know what to expect, and that helps give them a sense of safety and confidence. It's really important to use simple and safety-focused language about food allergy. Caregivers are primarily responsible for food allergy management at this young age. And when parents follow consistent food allergy management routines, children learn this is an important part of daily life. There's also challenges at these early ages. It's very common for parents to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or worried at times, especially when a child is first diagnosed with the food allergy, but also at other transitional times that can bring out some more stress. Specific concerns at these ages can be around introducing new foods, especially when you're just getting into introducing those complementary foods into a young child who's weaning from breastfeeding or formula feeding. Monitoring for allergic reactions in children who are too young or not able to express what they're feeling in words, or who cannot yet describe their symptoms. They might not be able to say, my tummy hurts, my tongue is itchy. So you'll have to look out for those nonverbal cues of things like behavioral changes or other words that they might say. There's also concerns about limiting family social activities, and they can inform choices about leaving the child in the care of others. And you can think especially about this going into the holidays, where food is a big part of a lot of holiday gatherings. Thanksgiving is coming up next week. So, how families with food allergy feel about engaging in those situations that are very food focused. And as parents learn more about managing food allergies, they start to feel more confident and will develop routines that can help their child be healthy and safe. So one thing that I really love about these handouts is we've developed some really nice quotes or phrases that you can say as you educate your child about food allergies, and you can either take them directly or slightly modify them. And they're written in language that a child at that age can understand and relate to as well. So when teaching children about food allergies, it's really important to use a calm tone, simple terms, and focus on safety routines. And you can say this again, even in a pre-verbal child, just getting into that rhythm, and eventually they'll incorporate that into their sense of what their daily life is like. So saying, you are allergic to eggs, eggs can make you sick, or we have our medicine bag, so now we can go to the park. It's also important to explain routines out loud so that children will learn they are important. Again, even in young children who might not yet be able to understand all the words you're saying, just hearing that and that repetition and that rhythm, saying, we read the label, so we know there are no eggs in these cookies. They're safe for you to eat. It's also really important starting at a young age to teach your child not to share food. Parents can practice language with older toddlers directly or through play to help them get ready to know how to act in those situations. So practice with your child role playing, and they can say, no, thank you, I have allergies, if you role play offering them food. It's also really important to support children's self-esteem by helping them label feelings, giving them simple choices to increase their sense of control, and then praising them for following these important routines. So if you notice your child seems upset or unhappy, you can say, it seems like you're mad you can't eat what your brother is eating. Let's find a food you enjoy that is safe for you. Or again, giving your child choices to give them a sense of control, saying, Daddy brought snacks to the park. Would you like the crackers or the fruit? And again, praising them. So great job washing your hands before you eat. I wanted to transition into the slightly older age group now, the school-age children. And the theme at this age is emerging awareness and involvement. So we'll group together two of our other handouts, the early grade school, which is around age 5 to 8 years, and the late grade school, which is age 8 to 11 years. So concepts at this age are that caregivers are tasked with developing food allergy management strategies to enable the child's safe participation in activities outside of the home. So school, play dates, birthday parties, social gatherings. And children at this age are working on building a sense of control and independence away from their parents. Children at this age can understand more about food allergies and they can begin to follow simple safety rules. So this is a really great time to involve the child in food allergy management with parental supervision to help them develop those skills. So gradually including children in food allergy management really helps them build the skills and confidence that they'll need to manage their food allergies independently in the future when they get older. There are challenges at these ages as well. So transitions are a big one. School entry or changing schools from one elementary school to another one, things that require reliance on third parties and increased child responsibility for food allergy management can be a source of caregiver anxiety, and also in the slightly older children, a source of anxiety for the children sometimes as well. Children at this age are developing a greater awareness of differences from peers. And I want to emphasize this is completely developmentally normal. At these ages, children notice gender differences, differences in appearances, but medical conditions like food allergies or why one child is doing one thing different from another can also be a source of noticing differences. There's also this concept of special to different transition. So you think of, the child going to a birthday party and the child has food allergies. So the really young child, maybe their parents make them a special cupcake to bring to the birthday party so they'll have a safe treat that they can eat. And that's really exciting and special for them when they're really little. But as they get a little bit older, that becomes starts to feel not so special anymore and can make them feel different and maybe not so happy. So working and understanding those challenges. There's also need for management strategies that emphasize both safety and social inclusion to foster confidence. Oh, sorry, do you mind going back? I think to somebody, I don't know if you don't mind muting. Let's see. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Now I'm muted as well. Okay, I'm unmuted now. Thanks. Okay. So children can also experience anxiety about accidental exposure to allergens and allergic reactions in situations that they previously navigated with confidence. Things that can contribute to these types of anxiety are a greater cognitive awareness of risks of allergen exposure, but also misperceptions about the level of risk associated with casual contact. So for example, a child might all of a sudden become worried that smelling peanut butter could cause an allergic reaction when, as we know, it's eating the food that could cause a reaction. The smell wouldn't make them sick. And then also having a greater independence in food allergy management can lead to some increased anxiety. And another really important thing at this age is children can be at increased risk of bullying or teasing by peers, particularly in school. And it's important to know that bullying should never be tolerated. A lot of times parents are unaware that their child is being teased or bullied because of food allergies. So it's really important conversations to have with your child. Check in, ask how their day was, ask where they sat and ate lunch or snack at school. And that can be a way to kind of open up that conversation. And if there's any concerns about teasing or bullying, definitely engaging with the school who can help you navigate that. Great. So we have some management tools for this age group as well. So it's important to teach children about food allergies in the same way you would talk about other safety issues. So with a calm voice, focused on the routines, focused on, how to stay safe and not focusing on the worst case scenarios. So saying things like eggs can make you sick. We read labels and keep your medicine with us because these strategies work really well to keep you safe. Or saying, just like we stay on safe paths and always wear a helmet when we ride a bike, we read ingredient labels and always keep your epinephrine auto injector close by. It's also really important to teach children why reading ingredient labels is so important. As they learn to read, let them practice label reading with you. As someone who has 2 children who are learning to read right now, you could make it a fun game. Have the food allergens be sight words that they can help you spot on the labels. So saying, we read the label, so we know there are no eggs in these cookies. They are safe for you to eat. It's really important to be consistent with and reinforce important rules and routines with children. So if there is saying something like, if there's no label, we can't eat the food, or use the bathroom, grab your coat and make sure we have your epinephrine auto injector. You can role play or practice language ahead of time for common scenarios so children will feel more confident and feel prepared. So if you're planning to go out to a restaurant, you can have your child practice what to say to the wait staff. They can practice saying, I have food allergies to wheat and soy. You can act out what they would do if they were at a birthday party or a play date and offered food, saying, no, thank you, I have allergies, or I have to ask my parent. If there's an allergic reaction that happens, it's really key to help children return to their usual allergy management routines after a reaction. For anyone who's experienced an allergic reaction, it can be a really scary thing for children, parents, everyone involved. And children can often interpret these situations differently than adults. They hear loud, excited voices. They might see a lot of people show up all of a sudden, like if you call 911. There's an ambulance that arrives, or if they go to a hospital. And to young children, these loud, excited voices can sometimes feel like yelling, and they could be scared that they did something wrong. So I use this as a really important learning opportunity, and you guys can go to your allergist and talk about this as well. This is a really important time to debrief, talk about what parts of the emergency plan worked well, and then anything that you might do differently that you learned to stay safe in the future. So praising your child, saying, you did the right thing when you told me that your throat felt tight. That was really important. And reminding your child, your auto injectors stop the reaction quickly. Support, you can also support self-esteem by letting children know it's okay to feel frustrated or sad. As a parent, you can't fix everything, but you're there to listen and do your best. And you can encourage your children to come to you if they feel upset and praise them for making good choices. So you can say, I know it was hard when you couldn't eat the snack at soccer. I was proud when you said, no, thank you. Let's get a safe treat now. So now I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Teresa Bingaman, who's going to talk about the food allergy management in the older age groups.
Thank you, Lisa. So as Dr. Bartnegas mentioned, I am talking about teens and young adults. And as you know, this is the time of transitioning to independence. So we're talking about early teens from 11 to 14 years, late teens, you see that overlap for 14 to 18 years, and then the young adults 18 to 21 years. And as you know, adolescents really focus more on friends and social relationships. Fitting in with peers is extraordinarily important at this age. And sometimes children will feel self-conscious about their food allergies or embarrassed to speak up in social situations. And this is where your tween or teen will take cues from you. So be careful about your messaging. We want to support their ability to speak up and feel confident. We want to work with them so they can play a larger role in their food allergy management. And we want to help them continue to build skills to work towards independence. However, it's important to recognize they still do need your support. And by providing graduated responsibility, they can develop confidence, and it also can allow you to develop confidence for when you're not there. So some of the challenges and concerns that I often hear is that oftentimes by middle school, the environments are less structured. We move away from allergen-free tables. Again, kids spend more time away from adult supervision. They may be out with friends. They may be at school dances. They may be playing on teams. And what happens is at this age, adolescents will develop greater awareness of the risks. And so this can lead to worry and sometimes even hypervigilance. And so the other thing that comes along with this is that they're having lots of new experiences. And with new experiences, they may have new questions or concerns. And so it's important to check in with them periodically and find out what they are comfortable with and what they're uncomfortable with. We need to recognize that adolescents are still developing problem solving and organization skills. And so it's really important to be clear about management expectations, but to collaborate on how to reach those goals. And that can be helpful to understand which things your teen or tween is feeling worried about doing or would like some practice doing. And it's very important that teens understand and can use their anaphylaxis management plan. They need to know how to use their self-injectable epinephrine. And you want to be clear about the division of management responsibilities. So, this is the age where I really like to see the teen or the tween being responsible for their self-injectable epinephrine, as opposed to, well, it's always in mom's purse, because they're going out alone now, and it's important they have it with them. We also want to be careful that we're balancing parental desires with what the tween or teen is most comfortable with. Sometimes parents really want teens or tweens to do more than they're ready for. And then on the other hand, sometimes teens and tweens feel like they're ready to take the next step, but the parent isn't quite there yet. So these discussions and ongoing discussions are exceedingly important. And then when it comes to carrying self-injectable epinephrine, of course they need to have this when they're out alone. However, do they want to self-carry at school or not? I find that I'm often asked by parents, can my child self-carry their epinephrine at school? And sometimes the teen, or more often the tween than the teen, but they're sitting in the room and they're shaking their head and they're getting very anxious. So in my experience, I see more kids self-carrying in middle school than elementary school, but some kids in middle school are still happier having their self-injectable epinephrine with the nurse, but by high school, I see most kids self-carrying. So the key to successful management is open and ongoing communication. So you want to ask questions to understand their experiences and concerns. And so, for example, how do they handle get-together when food is present? I remember a number of years ago, one of my son's friends, they were in middle school and he had multiple food allergies, and I knew about his allergies. And so I always made sure I had safe snacks when he came over. And I offered to let him read the labels. I, had fruit. I had other things that were okay. And he never once ate at our house. And I remember mentioning something to his mom, and she said, I'm really glad you brought that up. I never thought about it. He's probably not eating many times when he goes out. The other thing is it's important to find out, are they reading labels? Remember, we're transitioning to independence. We want to feel confident that they're doing everything they can to keep themselves safe. And the first step in that is knowing what they're putting in their mouth. And then, are they comfortable with the plan at school? We want to make sure that no one ends up sitting alone at lunchtime. We want to make sure that they feel supported. Another area to ask about is, do they ask about ingredients or speak up about their allergies when out with friends? And sometimes the best way to find out is asking their best friend. When the teens bring their friends with them to the visits, I always feel I can ask. And if their friends feel they're doing something unsafe, they always seem happy to rat them out. Encourage your teen to ask questions and speak up if they have a concern. And whether that's with you, whether that's with the school nurse, whether that's with their allergist, we really want to focus on getting them involved and giving them the tools so when they move to the next stage that they feel comfortable and confident taking care of themselves. And then we want to involve them in plans for situations they are worried about. So again, this comes to, okay, you're going to the school dance. Is there food at the school dance? Is that a safe food for you? Should you bring something else? Do you want to eat before? The other thing that you need to start thinking about is handling new situations like dating and alcohol. If your teen or tween may not be comfortable discussing this with you, you mentioned something to your allergist before and say, can you talk to them for a few minutes alone? Also, remember to keep checking in and keeping lines of communication open. I mentioned this earlier briefly, but when it comes to epinephrine, make sure you know how they want to handle self-injectable epinephrine at school. Emphasize the importance of carrying and using self-epinephrine if needed. Studies have shown that teens may not use their epinephrine, and sometimes it's because they say they didn't know how or when to use it. So I really like practicing with the expired auto injectors on an orange or a grapefruit. I find having them do that gives them a lot of confidence. It's important to make sure, again, they know when and how to use this, and are they willing to use it? Consider the size and shape of the device. Is it something they feel confident with? Is it something they're willing to carry? So now we're going to move on to our young adults, the 18 to 21-year-olds. And as was mentioned earlier, we have 2 new sections for this group. That is the managing food allergies at college and preparing to manage your own health care. So young adults should be ready to take the primary responsibility for day-to-day food allergy management. And remember, we've been working up to this. Everything we've done to come before this is so you and they can feel confident in this role. But remember, it's critical to provide continued support. Let them know that they are not alone, and that if they move out of the house or go to college, that families, friends, roommates can be a great support, and they will feel more confident, and you will feel more comfortable over time as well. So when we think about preparing to manage your own healthcare, this is where I like the idea of even having the teens speak up and asking some questions when they're there with you, because by the time they're in college, you may not be at all the appointments. So talk about the skills they will need to lead the role in their healthcare. And we want them to prepare for their appointments with their allergist. So to maybe make a list of questions, maybe go to the appointment alone, or maybe ask for some one-on-one time with the allergist. And then they should be thinking about strategies to remember to refill their prescriptions. And so, especially if they need to have their meds at school, how is that going to be handled? And then if they're moving away from home, you want to make sure they know the location of the nearest hospital or medical facility. So then when things they need to know at college for managing food allergies. So I always tell people when they're looking at schools to ask questions about what their options will be if they attend that college or university. It is helpful to touch base with the Disability Services Office, and you want to find out how food is prepared in dining halls and what that may be like. So I've seen some schools where they list all the allergens next to the food. I see other schools that, depending on what the allergies are, some kids call ahead and food is prepared for them. And then for other kids, it may be decided that they don't feel comfortable at the dining hall, and do they need some place to cook for themselves? They also need to know how they can access allergen information. Some schools post this online. Sometimes you have to reach out to the dining services office. Sometimes it's posted in the dining hall. Also, are there special meal options and how do they access them? And then, are there emergency plans in dining facilities? What is the plan? What would happen if someone has a reaction? It's also important to consider housing and roommate options. I've had some patients that like rooming with someone else with the same allergy. I've had other people that say, you know what, I'm going to be really uncomfortable if this person doesn't want to keep our room a safe space. So those are important things to consider. Also, does your child need a private mini fridge or microwave so they can make their own food? Or do they need a kitchen? Do they need a personal kitchen? So they maybe need to be in an apartment, or can they use the kitchen that's on a floor of a residence hall? It also can be helpful to find out whether the resident advisor will be trained on managing food allergies, and it can be helpful to speak to the RA as well as roommates and discuss things in advance about how to keep your living space safe and also what to do in case of an emergency. So we wanted to summarize why we think stage-based handouts are so important. And we recognize that ongoing education is critical and different challenges and concerns occur over time. And as children age, they notice more differences between themselves and others, and they strive towards increased independence and have new situations that they have to navigate. So we consider this a roadmap to independent care. And our goal with this is to help improve comfort for you and your child, also to improve safety, improve quality of life, and self-efficacy. So we just wanted to show you how to find the handouts again. I know the links will be put in the chat. However, if you go to Google and type in food allergy stages handouts and even add the Quad AI, these pop right up. So how might we use the handouts? So the handouts can be used during visits. So sometimes we may put the link in the chat. Ultimately, we're going to have a QR code, so we could pull them up for patients in the room, and we can use them as an education tool. One of the things that I do, I put them in the link in my after visit summary, so my patients can access them anytime they want. Also, families can use them online, whether it's to educate themselves, other family members, but also to educate others. You can use them when you're talking to your daycare teacher or to the teachers at school, or a local organization or place your child spends a lot of time. The last thing that I wanted to emphasize was in the basic handouts, there's resources for further management. And these management tools include more information on label reading and recognizing and treating reactions. There's some video links there, how to navigate the schools and childcare settings, how to get for professional and patient support organizations, and then also programs to get food assistance and reduced cost programs. And of course, we hope that using these handouts reduce anxiety and distress and improve quality of life. But if you find you're struggling or your child is struggling, please do not hesitate to reach out to a trained mental health professional as well. And we would be remiss if we didn't provide acknowledgments to the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, who helped us put this together. They got them translated to Spanish for us, and they also did some wonderful graphic design work. And our Food Allergy Stages project team, under the lead of Dr. Lebovich, So all these people here, it was a pleasure to work with all of them. And we really want to thank all the caregivers and patients who reviewed these handouts and shared their feedback with us to improve this resource. Thank you for listening.
So I want to thank our speakers so much for this unbelievable program. And I believe we have some questions in the chat. And so I'm going to turn this now over to Caroline, unless there's anything that anybody wanted to add before we get into the questions. We've covered a lot of unbelievably important information. But Caroline, do we have some questions in the chat that you can share?
Yes, so we have one right now, and I imagine there might be a few more that get added, but the one right now says, my 17-year-old doesn't want to bring their EpiPen when he goes out with friends because he says he won't be eating anything. Any tips on how to explain the importance about carrying the EpiPen even though he might not be planning on eating food?
So I feel like I have this conversation a lot. And so I usually start first with talking with teens about just in general, right? We've seen the most unfortunate fatalities in teens due to probably risk-taking behavior, also not carrying epinephrine and not using it when needed. So I emphasize that first, but then I also talk to them about some of them may be driving. And so, but they all tend to get this, that we all have car insurance and none of us plan each day to go out and get into a car accident, but we have insurance nonetheless. And so we don't, no one plans on having an allergic reaction. So I always remind them that this is important, it's life-saving, and that they should always have it with them. Usually they respond pretty well to that. And then some of them I found also, depending on the shape or size of the device they have, they're more or less likely to carry it with them. So sometimes getting a smaller device makes it more likely. And the other thing I was just going to say, for teenage boys, it tends to be the ones I have the most resistance with because they don't carry purses with them. So I found, one, the small devices, but two, they seem to like those string backpacks. And sometimes I can get them to carry them in that too. I don't know if my colleagues want to add anything.
Yeah, I was just gonna, those were great responses. And I think often we sometimes think with teenagers, do they feel invincible? And often it's not that, it's that they have competing things they're considering. They want to be safe, but they also don't want to stand out. They're not sure how to carry it. So having these conversations is so important. And one of the things I often say with my families and patients I'm working with is that epinephrine is an awesome medication. It works quickly, it works effectively, but it's not magic. It can't work if it's not there. And so sometimes that also helps to kind of get that message across as well.
Excellent. Excellent. And I will just concur that I think the question of where to carry the epinephrine auto-injector for young boys who are transitioning into that independence, that's the tougher one because, as you said, they don't have purses. So I think having a discussion, as you recommended tonight, try to figure out what will be a comfortable place for you to carry that epinephrine auto-injector, because it's not magic, you need it. I think that conversation goes a long way. So thank you for your answers. Any other questions in the chat, Caroline?
So that is the only question I have right now. I don't know if there's anyone that's typing out a question or has anything else.
Okay, well, we'll wait for a second. I have one. I just wanted to follow up on the earlier part of the presentation where Dr. Bartnikas, you were talking about the safety-focused language, and you gave some examples. I really appreciated how you framed that in terms of how to discuss this, so that you're giving them, without them knowing it, the tools to be able to do this later on. Would there be any other examples that you could share? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that one or two other phrases that might, as you're thinking of how, when we're talking with our kids about the eating or the medicine or the reading the labels. Just those are the kinds of things, I guess, not to have you actually frame a sentence, but those are the things where you'd be looking to for a parent to be trying to frame their own safety focused language, correct?
Exactly. No, thank you. And I, yeah, I love that part, especially of the handouts. And I know Dr. Lebovich, I've had a lot of great, insights into that. And I've learned a lot about how to frame it from her as well. I think that the parallel that I always come back to is, teaching your kids how to cross the street, right? That's one of the most, dangerous things that you're going to teach your child how to do, and the thing you absolutely 100% want them to be safe. And I think, every parent has successfully taught their child how to cross the street feeling confident and not catastrophizing it. You think about how you explain to them, you say, we look to the left, we look to the right, it's safe to cross, let's go. You're not talking about the worst case scenarios for any of that. So I think drawing parallels to something like that as much as you can, but just mapping out kind of the simple safety focused language in a calm voice and words the child can understand. Just talking through the list of what you're doing, look, let's read the label together. We're reading it. Good. This looks like a safe snack. Oh, let's pack up your bag. What do we have in there? We've got your water, we've got your snacks. Great. We have your epinephrine auto injector. We're ready to go. Just marching through things. And I think just a calm, reassuring voice and helping your child be part of the team, I'd say, is kind of what I would focus on. And as they get a little bit older too, they can help you kind of get those things ready or help be part of the planning as well. I don't know if any of my colleagues have anything else to add as well.
I do have one more question if we want to answer that. So this says, my 17-year-old recently experienced anaphylaxis with me in the car. He held the epi and we talked through using it, but ended up calling 911 from the side of the road and ended up not using it. His reaction was caused from cross contact and it was mild. However, he had 4 systems going. Any advice for him/parents to epi, even if it's mild?
So no, I'm so sorry for what you went through. The person who wrote that into the chat, I'm glad everyone is okay. I think the biggest thing I would explain to families and kids is, when in doubt, use the epinephrine. You're never wrong to use it, and focusing on that. I think that's a great time, like we talked about, to debrief about what happened, because in this scenario, a lot of things are happening at once. I've been part of that too. You kind of rationalize yourself away from not using it, because I think in some ways when you feel like you're getting ready to use the epinephrine, you've declared it as anaphylaxis, and that gets you going down a whole different path. But framing it as, this is a safe medicine. It's adrenaline. Your body makes it anyway. We know it's going to make you better. We know it works. Reframing it in that way can be really, really helpful. I think, anytime I've, gotten the page from a family, when I've been on call of, here's what's happening, do we use the epinephrine? If you're thinking about using it, it's definitely time to use it. But using, again, the opportunity to talk through with your allergist, and just like you said, you knew there were 4 systems, so we know if there's 2 or more systems, or anything like respiratory symptoms or other concerning things, using the epinephrine. So backing up and talking through that, and just really using it as a learning opportunity for what to do in the future should it ever happen again.
And I know for a lot of families too, who haven't had to use it, or for kids, if they first were diagnosed and they were quite young and it's been a long time, there's that fear of the unknown that is pretty strong with epinephrine. So with a lot of the families I work with, I will share the experience of other kids and other teens and other caregivers who, of course, no one wants to have a reaction, but there's also something empowering about realizing that you can do it and that it works quickly to help you feel better. And sometimes I share that with families because kids may not think that they might be focusing, often it's a focus on a needle or the worry, and we'll talk about the small needle size and other families' experiences of how quickly it worked, to sort of help empower a kind of a different way to think about it.
Awesome.
And
And
a few years ago, actually my PA's son was 17 and has a tree nut allergy and ate a meat stick with tree nuts in it at his swimming practice and had multiple body systems and was refusing to inject his self-injectable epinephrine. And she went and he wasn't letting her do it. And I happened to live a mile from there. So she called me up and said, will you come and do this? And so I got there and we talked through it. And afterwards he said to me, oh, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And to reemphasize my colleagues' points, you know, sometimes it can be helpful to say, what is holding us back? Using it isn't going to hurt him, but not using it might.
Excellent. I really, and I would imagine all of our viewers appreciate the way in which you are framing these situations, because I think they're so relatable for everyone on this webinar tonight. Any other questions, Caroline? No? Okay, well, those were great questions, and they helped also to stimulate the conversation and drive some very important points home. The one thing I will add also on the colleges, when you're talking, Dr. Bingaman, about going off to college, as you pointed out, so many colleges have different programs and do things differently. And when we talk about investigating, I think this is another area to investigate when you're thinking about where do I want to go to school, when you're thinking about geographically or whatever other your things that you're looking for. You want to also factor in questions about that so that there aren't any surprises when you get there that day. You have a pretty good idea of that it's going to be a comfortable setting. So I really appreciated your adding that too. I want to thank our panelists tonight, Dr. Lebovich, Dr. Bartnikas, Dr. Bingaman, for presenting an outstanding program, exceptional with us tonight. And I also want to thank you on behalf of our viewers, on behalf of AF New England, for your vision and for your work and your planning to provide this roadmap that is so helpful, with the resources that are so accessible for those of us out there who manage food allergies. And our hope is that this webinar, with this amazing information that's just been shared, will have empowered you, to use your word, Dr. Lebovich, with the information and strategies to help your children as they transition through these stages. So helpful. The handouts that have been provided on your screen and in the chat, AF New England, once we post this video, it can be seen again. We recorded tonight, as I said earlier, and those resources will also be on our website too. So you can access them in a number of different locations, which I think is important for you to know. And because this has been recorded, please, so much important information here. Please share it. So folks that couldn't make it tonight can absolutely log on to our website at asthmaandallergies.org so that they can see this again. And if you want to see it again, because sometimes, especially in a program like this where so much good information was shared, you don't want to miss anything. And so coming back and listening can be very helpful too. So thank you so much to our panel. AF New England is busy planning our speaker series for 2023, believe it or not. Can't believe we're in November. The subjects that we will be focusing on will be subjects that are important to our community. So obviously they will be related to asthma and allergies and food allergies and equity and access to healthcare. And they're always going to be presented by stellar panel and speakers. So be sure to look at your emails for announcements coming up about these programs. And if anyone with us tonight hasn't already done this, please do. We encourage you to join our community and get involved. Visit that website, asthmaandallergies.org, to join our mailing list for future notifications. And lastly, but importantly, your donations and support are very important to us and very much appreciated. They allow AF New England to be able to present these programs and services that we offer to our community, always for free. And we do this for you, for Life Without Limits. So that brings us to the close of this wonderful program. Again, thank you to our panelists. thank you to our viewers, and we hope to see you again in 2023. All right. Have a good night, all.